It was nice to hear that it was awful, but it's nice to hear that other people have the same problems or have dealt with things that you've dealt with as well. So it was actually, I found it really supportive. It made me look at how maybe I could deal with the situation better if I was ever in that problem again, and how I could look at other situations or any other problems I could face in the future and maybe dealing with them in different ways. So I found it really useful, really helpful.
I found it really enjoyable, but I found it more difficult than I expected because it's not very often that you get asked to think so deeply about one issue. It's quite a more of an in-depth process than I expected. I found it really valuable, but sometimes a little bit uncomfortable, like it was kind of not something that I'm used to, but I think that was a really good thing. Like it made me do something that I've not really done before and think about something in a way that I've not really thought about it before. So I think it was, yeah, it's been really different to how I expected, but really enjoyable and like really valuable process. Working with other people was really useful because I think there were things that I hadn't considered, that when other people commented on my poster, for example, it really helped me to hone in on what was the actual issue in my case. And just seeing it from someone else's perspective, I think makes you think about things in a different way. And that was really useful. And I think the way that it was done in smaller groups initially, and then the way that we all commented on each other's posters, that was really useful because you got that initial in-depth feedback from someone else and thinking about it from maybe one other point of view. And then even though the comments on the posters were very brief, it made me really hone in on what the issue was, because a lot of people were saying the same thing. And that made me realize that's what the issue is here. Thought about this issue in so much depth. If I hadn't gone through this process, I would have just thought, well, that was quite annoying and there was nothing I could really do about it. And I've realized actually there was quite a few things I could have done about it. So it made me think about it more from my own perspective rather than just the university's perspective of what they could do. Like, what could I have done about it as well? And what could I change in the future? On the pharmacy course, we have to do a lot of reflective writing. We do it all the time. So it's quite an important part of our course. It's quite an important skill that we have to have. And it's just made me realise that I could reflect on things a lot more deeply than I have been in the past. So we do reflective writing all the time. And I just think in the future, I think this will change the way that I do my reflective writing and the way that I reflect on, for example, placement experiences and things on the course, because I've just been forced to think about things a lot more deeply than I would normally. And so I think that's the main thing that it will change, is how I write reflectively and how I think reflectively about things that have happened on the course or on placements. And I think it's a really important skill going forward as well in our professional lives as pharmacists.
Sometimes you get so caught up in your head with how you feel about something, and then having someone else's point of view on it, you can sort of think, oh, I'll take a step back, or it was not as bad as I thought, or as bad as I thought, if that makes sense.
It was actually quite good. I think it was one of those things where you don't really often get a chance to just sit down with a group of people that you know and talk about what your experience was, how you found it, and just kind of dissect it in quite a high level of detail. And then obviously have people giving you quite honest feedback regarding what you experienced. So I found it quite valuable. It makes you think about things that you didn't necessarily consider before. So you have that opportunity to take what you know and what other people have told you about their own experiences about your issue. For me, it was personally Fit to Sit, which is a policy that we have. It's kind of a situation where you have to sign before an exam that you are fit enough to sit that exam and that there's no issues that could have impacted you in that exam. So that basically negates extenuating circumstances. And obviously it's not something that would just be personally for me that it would affect me, it's for anyone who's gone through it. So to hear their experiences with it as well was also quite helpful for me to reflect on my own experience with it.
So we had some discussions about what actually made it so difficult, and I was able to figure out and pinpoint actual things that happened that made it so difficult, rather than trying to bring all of my feelings in. Kind of take a step back and realise how I look at different situations. I feel like I'm more able to kind of take a step back and go, I need to change the way that I think about things sometimes, and think about more positive aspects, like what this will actually teach me, rather than this is the end of the world. I think it's been really helpful for my reflective process. Also for me to be able to understand the way that I think. So I would like to introduce in future courseworks and stuff like that. Like I need to be able to think more positively, and hopefully that will have a better outcome, and I'll be able to feel more motivated to go on and actually do a bit of coursework rather than kind of go, I don't really want to do this.
I actually really enjoyed it because I thought it was interesting to be able to reflect on an area of third year, because I found it quite a hard year, but I didn't really know what I found hard. So actually reflecting on it and trying to think about one case in particular was really helpful. Yeah, I thought that was really good as well, because it was nice that everybody had different opinions, but a lot of people agreed with me, and I thought that was nice because I didn't know if I was alone in what I thought or things like that. So that was helpful. And it was also good to hear, like, when other people gave you their opinions and spoke to you about why do you think this, it was quite good to make you look deeper into it. Yeah, I think it did, because originally I thought it was just an issue with the piece of coursework, but actually I think it was more due to not feeling prepared and then how stressed I got about the situation, and there wasn't really a need to get that stressed about it. I kind of knew exactly what I would change about it if I could have done it again and things like that, and advice I'd give to other people. So that's my section 3 is definitely the longest bit because I know how I'd like to change it. So.
Initially, I thought it was, a bit of a waste of time. But eventually I thought, no, actually, I see the point of it. So in the first session, I was like, oh, this is taking way too long. But nearly the end of it, I was like, actually, I'm learning a lot from this. Like, I'm improving myself. And next time this ever does happen again, I can do this instead of this. Oh, maybe don't think about why this has happened. Instead, think about why this has made you think that this has happened. Like, think more into it instead of just being shallow and be like, I just don't like the system. And like, because I didn't like the system, I didn't actually do anything about it. And then when this project came on, I was like, yeah, let's sign up for it because it's £100. And then afterwards I was like, no, actually, it's more than just £100. It made me think more, just in a sense that if this affects me this way, how can I combat it? Because not every time other people will change. Instead, sometimes I have to change.
I thought it was like a lot more enjoyable than what I had expected. It provides an insightful experience into what I could have done, looking back at the situation that I had encountered. I thought it was really useful because I could see that many of my peers felt the same way that I did in regards to the same situation that I had encountered, and that it offered us a voice to raise our concerns to staff and to potentially make changes in the future. Initially, I just looked at it as in it was just like not really like, it was like beyond my control essentially, but then it gave me the opportunity to reflect on what I could have done. For example, like, because my case is about an imbalance in the workload between the different modules that we have on the MPharm course. It just made me think how I could have managed my time more efficiently and organised myself better. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to help me when I practice as a pharmacist eventually, because I've refined my organisation skills and then my reflective skills as well, to be able to look back and to learn from what I could do better and to find potential solutions to problems that I may encounter.
I think it was really interesting. It took me out of my comfort zone for sure. Usually I'm the type of person who just deals with things, and the fact that, having to sit down and really make a case about it and think back to the time where I was kind of put in a difficult situation, I think that was like a really new experience for me, and it really did force me down to sit and think. You're also quite surprised at how many students have gone through the same thing as you. So it's good for you to get their experience as well, and what they think about your case, as well as you giving your feedback on their case, because you're always like, this is I deal with things, and you're like, oh wow, I also dealt with that. And you don't think about it until somebody else brings it up. And I think the staff have been amazing, because they're always challenging you to like think even deeper than you think, Like you think you thought like, okay, this is deep, and they're like, well, it's not that deep. There's more to it, and you're like, okay, there's more that I can say. And it's like a therapy session. It was a real therapy session. This whole thing, it was definitely more in depth. It was also like it taught me to shift blame, or not, as in not to keep saying, okay, it's the school's fault. It was like, okay, what could I have done differently as well? So it wasn't always like, okay, schools, it's the pharmacy's fault that they did this. So it was like, okay, I could have approached this differently. I could have made it different for myself, instead of just blaming other people, which I think that was a really good way of doing it, and again in more depth as well. So it wasn't just like a superficial, okay, I could have done this, but I could have done this, and it would have really impacted me. It made me think again. It's really easy. We all like to complain and give up problems, but I think the focus should always be on giving solutions, because it's only with solutions that you find you solve the problem. So it's good and well that we sit here and say, okay, this is a problem and we need to change this, but if there's no solutions and we're not providing solutions, then is it really a point of just complaining? So I think that was really useful, because it also made you reflect, like, again, you could have done things differently on the way to that problem. So it wasn't just, the problem is not just a final product. There's things that lead up to that problem. And each step of the way there could have been something different that you could have done that could have prevented the final problem. If I managed my time better, if I'd, contacted my tutor early enough, I might have not been in the situation that I was in. So it definitely made me reflect on my own development. It also made me reflect on, looking back at the document, because I did it on PDP and it's in my content report, my case report. But in that you can see that I'm, I can understand the process, like the reason why they made us do this particular thing, but I didn't really appreciate it at the time, and it could have helped me develop myself. But I still don't see the real point of it. But there was a window of opportunity to develop yourself, and I didn't really take heed of the opportunity as well as I could have. To develop myself in a way that I wouldn't have thought of doing before.
Great. And so it was really great to discuss your problem, see if they felt the same way, see if they had anything to add to it. Sometimes there's things you've missed, but just being able to interact with them helps you just fill in the gaps that you may have, and then having the staff available to just assist you and then help you go through the process, as well as having even lecturers from the MPharm course present, so you're being heard when you talk to them about the issue you're having. He's putting it into acts, help to really divide the issue into before, during, and after, and especially the reflection stage was really key in seeing exactly where the issue stemmed from and what you've learned from it. Definitely, talking to lecturers themselves, you feel like you've been given a voice, and you're being heard, and you get to actively hear their solutions and what the lecturers are thinking of doing. So you always feel like you're being heard, as opposed to when do a feedback questionnaire or whatever. You don't know if your point's being taken or it's just being glossed over. From going through this project, definitely in the reflection stage, I've been able to see what I've been doing wrong, what I could have done better throughout the year in hindsight, as well as things I'll be able to take forward now into my fourth year, now that I've been able to develop the case and my issue.
Going in, I didn't think it would be a lot, to be honest, but it's been quite surprising, over the course of a 10-hour process, to go into something in as much detail and depth as we have. That we don't get that opportunity a lot. It made it feel like more of a consultation, as opposed to a direct sort of question and answer session. Because in previous situations where we've had a student conversation, a lecturer would just ask a question and we'd just give a direct answer back. We were never sort of challenged on those views. Whereas we made all the posters and stuff, and we were able to comment on each other's, and to have those sort of views and opinions challenged by our peers to give us a new perspective and a new side of it was quite rewarding. It makes you consider other people's views and opinions, ones that you wouldn't have considered yourself, because when you're in the moment and you think of an issue, you think very subjectively, whereas an outside observer will think, well, what did you think about this, or have you considered this aspect, and what could you have done differently? Because it's quite easy to sort of blame everything else when you look at yourself, and it always changes. It makes you consider aspects that you didn't before. For example, my case was about group work and then timescales of that. So, and a part I picked up on was time management stuff, and it was a nice reflection to think of myself that I could in future manage my time more efficiently. I could implement practices that I've only just thought of in this process that I didn't consider before.
Yeah, it was good because we worked in sort of small groups, and then when we made the work, then we sort of just built on it. So they offered me feedback, I offered them feedback, and they could sort of see from an outside perspective. which was good. And we also had the teachers there as well, so they could sort of see where we were going with it, see what needed improving. Yeah. I've thought of this as it's not only just learning for an experience; it's sort of a life learning experience as well. So you need to learn to adapt to situations in uni and in real life as well. So with planning of assessments and things, managing time for me was like the hardest. With like 4 or 5 assessments within like a 3 to 4 week period, I needed to set time aside for myself as